Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, how have you been?
I'm just tired because I've been sick for a couple of days.
I see. Not so different myself. I mean, I'm not sick yet, but have been classes. I've haven't having classes since 8:30 a.m. Like the class I had to take, and now I'm giving a class. So this is my last one, so it would be the last one. So I can rest after this.
Mhm.
So last time we were talking about some of the the basic input output devices and printers and such. But today we're going to be talking about a little more recent technology, which is touchscreens. So you know how tablets and phones have a touchscreen on them. Even some laptops have touchscreen on them, like these days, that are like that you can change. Like it's a dual kind of laptop that sometimes you can change into a tablet, or you can use the keyboard and change it into a laptop. So we're
Yeah.
going to be talking about the touch screens, like what actually happens on the when you touch a screen, what kind of technology it uses, and they're basically three types that we're going to be talking about. So the first one is capacitive. The other one is infrared, which is also considered heat and optical, which has like two types, heat and optical. And then there's one called resistive. Now, these three types, we're going to go through what they are and how they work, and then we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each. So, touchscreens are now a very common form of input device. They allow simple touch to launch an application or to carry out many of the functions of pointing devices, such as a mouse. One of the main uses of a touchscreen technology is in mobile phones. At present, there are three major types of touchscreen technologies applied to a mobile phone screen: the capacitive, infrared, and resistive. So now let's talk about this one in detail, the capacitive one. So in capacitive, they said that this is made up of many layers of glass that act like a capacitor, creating electric fields between the glass plates in layers. So capacitors and electric fields, have you heard these two words before?
Which ones?
The capacitor and the electric field.
I've heard electric fields.
Hmm. Okay. And not capacitor.
No.
Okay. So capacitors are basically these kind of they're like these little devices that store a charge, if I'm not wrong. Let's double check that. So here we can see capacitor is a device that stores electrical energy in an electric field. So it's linked with the electric field. It stores all the energy that is in an electric field. Now let's talk about electric field. What is an electric field in your opinion?
Electric field. Have you pressed enter?
No, I'm asking you what you think electric field is.
Oh, I think it's like, you know how in science there's magnetic fields, like waves of, I think,
Yeah,
magnetized energy.
exactly. So you can see these waves here.
Something like that.
Yeah, like normally you in like experiments, when you do experiments further on, you'll see that
Yeah.
there's a north pole and a magnet and a south pole, and normally if you keep them close to each other but not touching each other, and you put something down on it, normally you'd use these like tiny like graffiti or like pencil graffiti or anything magnetic or iron like has some sort of metal in it. You put that down and you'll see that it goes in this pattern, this wave like pattern, showing you the electric field directions. So an electric field is a physical field that surrounds electric charged particles. Now you don't have to go in so much detail about these, but what I'm trying to get at is that these things um, come into your touch screens. That's how it helps you communicate. So the layers of glass act like the capacitor, which stores the energy in the electric field. This glass creates the electric field and then between the glass plates in the layer. So there's this electric field going on in between the layers of glass for a capacitive type of touchscreen, right?
Can you repeat
So,
that? I couldn't hear you. You're glitching.
oh, sorry. Okay, so I was saying that in a capacitive touchscreen, it's basically made up of these layers that act like a capacitor, which and we looked at how what a capacitor is. So a capacitor is basically something that stores energy, right? And when something stores energy, it starts to create these electric fields through the glass plates and the layers.
Yeah.
And so using all of this, when the top of the layer is touched, so when you tap a touchscreen, a capacitive touchscreen, then the electric current changes and the coordinates where the screen was touched is determined by an onboard microprocessor. So once you touch your touchscreen on a capacitive one, on a capacitive touchscreen, the current changes. It uses these capacitors and electric fields and finds out exactly at what point. Let's talk about this phone right here, this exact capacitive one. Let's say I touch this place over here on a phone. Now this
Yeah.
place has some sort of X and Y coordinates. This is way too thick. So this place has some sort of X and Y coordinates. And that is found out after finding out the current change and where the coordinates, where the screen was touched, determined by your onboard microprocessor. So what is a microprocessor?
Like a processor that is very small.
That's a good point. And why do you think we use that in phones? Because it's small. I mean, we can't have like a laptop's processor inside a phone. It just wouldn't fit,
Yeah,
right?
that was exactly what I was thinking, but I thought you wanted me to give you like a scientific reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like I used to think that too, and it would normally link to me not giving my answers in front of the teacher. And in a bigger classroom, there are other students, and you think about 100 times before answering because you don't want to say the wrong thing completely. But that is the logic behind the microprocessor and why it's in a phone. But in technical terms, yeah, we can look at the technical terms too. Any type of miniature electronic device that contains arithmetic, logic, control, it has a lot of processors, basically is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. So now that we know that the microprocessor or the onboard microprocessor determines the coordinates at which it was touched, it communicates those coordinates to the phone and does whatever it is that you need to do. So for example, if you touched an app like YouTube, then it's going to open YouTube after knowing why you touched a specific coordinate. Right? So why would we use
Okay.
this capacitive touch? Sorry?
I sometimes I just wonder how they made how humans made the small processors that have this much knowledge.
That I mean, it took a very long time. If you've seen how the olden days computers looked, I mean, I remember I used to have one in my house. It was I'd say like a
Macintosh.
small it was like a size of a small cardboard box. And
Yeah.
it was this thick thing with this really large CPU and a thick keyboard and everything. And that is because we had so much circuitry going on there. But with time they realized that so many of this is reducible. Like you can make this a lot more efficient, do the same things but with a reduced circuits and reduced wires and all of that, right? And so let's go to these images. Like let's see the evolution of computers. Let's look at that. Now there should be a picture here. Yeah, look at this. So in the beginning, we had nothing like even a screen. You can't even do that. There used to be a typewriter where you could just type on paper and it would come out on paper. But eventually, they developed this
Apple.
this whole. This is just the Apple computer design evolution, but in generic terms, just the computers. And they used to have these systems, but without screens. Like they used to have really large screens. There's this thing called a mainframe. And a mainframe is basically a very, very large computer that we still use in these days, but for like big companies. So oftentimes you'd have this for banks, and you never know where a specific bank's um, mainframe is because it has all the data. It's very fragile data, and if it's in the wrong hands, someone could get robbed, or you would know everything about a person's financial details, which you don't want everyone to know. It's user and customer privacy, right? So these mainframes are normally the size. It's like a size. It takes up the space of a smaller room, and that's how much data is stored in there.
So they've progressed a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's still like right now, this like 20 years later, what we have, the technology we have right now still may seem so old and outdated compared to what might come later, because we've started to reach AI now, artificial intelligence, which is robots thinking for themselves after we've
Yeah.
given them some sort of data.
I've heard like this conspiracy theories that the robots they're making are gonna one day uh, take over the planet.
Yeah, I mean, those movies have been coming out even before um the kind of computers we have now were produced. Because I mean, again, it's sci-fi. So flying car, people have been thinking of the future being flying cars for centuries, but it still hasn't happened because we've it's not there yet, but it might be in the future, but it takes time to bring change. And with that, technology is still improving. There are already things though that are pretty close to flying cars, like airplanes, right? But
Yeah.
it's getting there.
Yeah.
So, so here you can see. Actually, I don't know if you've seen this movie called iRobot.
No, I think I've heard of it. iRobot.
Yeah. So it was about this whole thing that robots took over the planet, blah blah, and this man has to save the world, and there's only one or few robots that are actually good, and basically it's still not 100% possible, but there are robots that are out, like I don't know if you've heard of Sophia, I think it was her name, and there were some more like that.
Elon Musk made one robot. I just can't remember its name.
Sophia, I think it was Sophia, yeah.
Mhm.
This robot right here.
Oh yeah, this.
Yeah. So I
I've
mean,
heard scary. Yeah.
the thing around this is that she's programmed to give certain answers to certain things, and she also has access to the internet. So with that, there's already so much data involved. So I mean, it's not 100%, a robot thinking for themselves, but it is. And if she's programmed to give, sometimes she's programmed to give whatever the programmer wants her to say. So, let's say I told her to say that one day we're going to take over the world. They've developed some kind of humor for her as well, and I guess it's not easy to tell, but it is at the back end. It's like it's what you use to attract the customers and such.
I've heard of this too.
Hmm. Yeah,
Sophia.
yeah. She's it's this came out a very long time ago actually, but they keep on developing new ones, of course. So let's go a little bit back to the topic at hand, where we're still not at robots yet, but we're at the touch screens that we use on phones.
Yeah.
So the benefits of using this capacitive touchscreen technology is that it's a medium cost. It's not too expensive and it's not too cheap either. The screen visibility is good even in strong sunlight. So if you're outside in the sun, you don't have to always like try to find a shade to see what your screen says. This is like commonly the ones that we use. Um, it permits multi-touch capability. So if you have like multiple, if you have to tap the screen in two places at once for any certain program, if you have that kind of application, then you can do it. The screen is very durable. It takes a major impact to break the glass, so it's a strong screen. Um, the drawbacks of this is only one, and that is the allows the use of only bare fingers as the form of input, although the latest screen permits a special stylus to be used. So um, this kind of capacitive touchscreen normally only allows either bare fingers or stylus, or like the stylus is basically a touchscreen kind of pen. And So like if you're wearing gloves or like your hands aren't bare, maybe your hands are wet, you just wash your hands. It doesn't always work that well.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah. So, all right. So the next kind we have is infrared. So from infrared, what do you get? What do you think infrared itself means?
Well, in, there's some thermometers that are also called infrared thermometers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and those are wireless, so they give off rays, I think, or waves. So I think
Yeah.
infrared is something like that.
Yeah, normally we use the term infrared rays and things like that. So infrared itself is related to heat, or it kind of infrared is like you might have seen these kind of pictures where heat is recognized with red and everything else is blue and things like that,
Yeah,
right? So heat infrared touchscreen has two types of touchscreens. Either it can be heat sensitive infrared touchscreen or an optical infrared touchscreen. So in heat sensitive, by its name, the heat it needs a warm object to touch the touchscreen, and only then will it carry an input operation. And this uses a glass as the screen material like every other touchscreen. With optical, the difference is that it also uses glass, but the difference is that it uses an array of sensors in the form of a grid. So there's like this huge, for an optical one, there's this huge um, grid all over the screen and at the back end. Obviously, you can't see that in itself. And the point of contact, so whatever place I touch it, let's say I touch it here or here or here, then it finds out the coordinate through the grid of where it was touched and then performs that operation.
okay.
Right.
Yes, so,
Right. So the advantages of these both systems, both of these heat sensitive and optical, allow multi-touch capability. The optical system, let's talk about the advantage of the optical system, allows the use of bare fingers, gloved fingers, or a stylus input. So it's comparatively better than a capacitive one, right? Because it still allows like the gloved ones and the gloved fingers or a stylus and so on,
yeah,
right? And then both systems have good screen durability. It takes a major impact to break the glass. This is also strong, just like a capacitive one is. So the drawbacks of this include it is relatively expensive. So these are commonly more expensive in the market, and heat sensitive system only allows bare fingers to be touched, so gloved and stylus doesn't work. And both systems, for optical and heat sensitive, have fairly good screen visibility. Like they wrote this on the disadvantage because it's fairly good. It's not the best, basically.
oh, okay, that's what I was wondering. If it's fairly good, why do you put it with disadvantage?
Yeah, no, because see the capacitive's advantage said it said screen visibility is good, and over here it's fairly good. Fairly goes at a little lower than good, apparently.
Okay, fairly is low. I never knew that. I thought fairly was less, and more less.
All right. So the next thing we have is the resistive touchscreen. So in resistive touchscreens, we make use of an upper layer of polyester, which is a type of plastic. So the top layer of this type of screen is plastic instead of the others, which were glass. And the bottom layer of this, the bottom layer, the one behind this, is glass. And so when the top polyester layer, so when the top plastic layer is touched, the top layer and the bottom layer complete a circuit. So let's say this is the first layer, and I'm gonna make the other layer what's red. Let's say this lower red one is the glass layer. Okay, this is behind this one. And so when I touch the screen, let's say I touch it here, then this links to the glass layer, and completes a circuit. And then that's how it finds out where it was touched, what function it's supposed to perform, and so on. So signals are sent after you touch that point in the screen. The signal is sent to and interpreted by the microprocessor, and then the calculation between these find out the coordinates of the screen where it was touched, and the similar process to the rest of them after that.
Okay, what is polyester?
Polyester is a kind of plastic.
Yes, search it up.
All right. And so the advantage of this is that it's inexpensive. It's kind of cheaper than the rest of the two ones. And it is possible to use bare fingers, gloved fingers, or a stylus to carry out. You can use anything on it, and it'll probably pick it up. Not completely anything, maybe a bare fingers, gloved fingers, or your stylus. And so the disadvantage of this is that the screen visibility is poor, so you can't see this very easily in strong sunlight, and it doesn't permit multi-touch capability. You can't use multiple interactions at one time. And then the screen durability is only sorry, I can't see it. The screen durability is only fair, so it's okay. It's not the best. It's not dependable, but it's vulnerable to scratches, and the screen wears out through time.
So can you type in this in resistive?
Sorry.
Can you type in resistive like using a keyboard?
Um. Yeah. Yes, you can. It's a touchscreen, the same as the other ones. It's just that it's kind of older than the recent ones.
Okay, so the most recent one is capacitive.
No, the most recent ones are glass, like infrared or capacitive. Normally infrared optical, I believe so.
Okay.
All right, do you need to write this down or something?
I'll write them down. Yeah. I'll write what each of them is made of.